Good morning. Hi. How you guys doing? I'm Bovell and I'm going to be doing the Temple Way devotion today for their pilgrimage. Welcome. I want to share with you something from one of Jesus's parables that I really like. The reason I like it is that I think it speaks very profoundly to our contemporary concerns, things like culture and technology and our bodies and power and the future. So I'd like to read a little bit of it. It's from the Gospel of Mark, and it's chapter 4, and it says that he, Jesus that is, began to teach them many things in parables and said to them, listen, a sower went out to sow. Now, right there, we've got an agricultural reference, because at the time they're living with all of this agriculture around them, and Jesus is using the stuff that's around him to describe deeper things, to describe the spiritual. You know how it is. If it was today, he probably would have used technology. I reckon he probably would have said something like, a programmer tried to log into a program. And it's the same type of vibe that you get with this idea that this sower, this guy who's trying to plant some things, we can all relate to that, wanting to see some things grow in ourselves, to see some things grow in others, to see some things grow in the world. So we take our bravery and our courage, and we take the seed that we've got inside us, whatever that seed may be, and try to plant it, right? And try to let it take root. So you send it out there, and it says that when he tries to plant the first seed, it lands on the path, and then the birds come and they eat it up. So you got this image of someone who's trying to plant something, someone who's trying to allow something to grow, but when he tries to do it, he's hindered by how hard the ground is. And not only that, but he's hindered by the fact that this dream that he's had, this idea that he's wanted to develop, and this inner person that he's wanted to be, or this inner vision of reality that he's wanted to manifest, has been hindered by birds coming and eating up the seed. We can look a little bit into what is being described with the whole idea of the seed, right? And the path. The path represents a way that has been made by people walking on it, right? When you look at a field, the paths that are there aren't made deliberately. They're made because one person walked through the path and made a route to get through the field, and then when they kept going to get through the field and made that path, then other people saw, all right, this is an easy way to go, so they walked on that as well. So it's this idea that in life you have situations where you get stepped on, or you get hardened by continually being stamped down by life. We're born and we're quite optimistic, and you see little kids, they're just full of imagination and they can do everything. But then you go through life, and then you can become a little bit cynical, and begin to be your heart gets a little bit hard as a protective measure. And that's what's happened to the soil. It's become hard because it's been packed down by lots of people standing on it. So the point that Jesus is making is that when you're looking at trying to let something grow, when you're trying to look at faith, you're trying to get a new world to emerge, a new culture, a new hopes, new desires to emerge, that they're going to be challenged by the fact that maybe your heart is hard. So he says, you know what? Let me open up that heart. Let me do some drilling in there. Let me work on the soil so that your heart is healed to a place where you can be resilient enough to take those knocks and still keep going, to continue to be vulnerable in a world where that's seen as weakness. But he's speaking counterintuitively and saying that even though the world looks at that as weakness, in reality, that's a strength. It takes a lot of strength to be able to say that you're going to try and get into a relationship when all the other relationships have failed. It takes a lot of strength to start a new business when the other businesses have gone bankrupt. It takes a lot of strength to sing a song when the last time you sang it, you were pitchy. It takes a lot of strength. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It means that you're strong, that you're able to do that. It's a challenge and weakness of the ground that it can't receive any new seeds. It's just not open to those realities and those potentials. So let's look now at the second reality of what happens when this sower, this guy who's trying to plant something and see something grow, goes out and tries to log in. Oh, I forgot to say that if I was going to make it a technological example, then probably this idea of the seed that doesn't even get into the ground is like when you're trying to log in. You can't even log in. They've sent you too many logins in the past. You know, there's another program that I have to log into. We can relate to the idea that, you know what, I'm just not going to do it. I've had enough of having to log into new programs. I'm not going to do it. So then you're not open to that new world because you can't be bothered. Your heart's hard, you know, but you've got to stay curious, be willing to log into the new programs, you know, and see what happens. So then the next round, it says that some of the seed fell on rocky ground where it didn't have much soil, and it sprang up quickly since it had no depth of soil. Right now, this whole idea of it not having any depth of soil is talking about shallowness, right? That a plant that needs to grow needs to have like deeper roots. And the reality for our spirituality a lot of times is that there's not deep roots to it. Do you know what I mean? If we've looked at ourselves and started to compare ourselves to our idea of how we should be spiritually, that we should be sort of superhuman, then a lot of times that's not really a deep understanding of spirituality. Spirituality is a process. It's a journey. It's a pilgrimage. It's not something that happens after one day. Like you put it in the microwave and you say a prayer and then everything is magically altered by that one prayer, or everything is magically altered by that one little reading of a Bible passage. Do you see what I'm saying? It's something that, like any other relationship and any other discipline, like learning piano, like building muscles, has to develop over time. The first time I go to the gym, I'm not going to be able to do necessarily 10 reps with my highest weight, but maybe I'll be able to do 9, and the next day I'll come back and I'll build up. It's practice over perfection. But in a lot of situations, when it's shallow, then you're going to be looking at a perfectionism that is not really real, because it's a desire to look good on the surface. And you know, there's this plant sprouting out on the surface and it looks good on the surface, but really deep down inside it's not really saying anything, because it's taking itself too seriously and it's putting too much pressure on itself, and it's not thinking about the roots and the deepness and what God is doing on the inside, and what is manifesting over a longer period of time and over process. So again, there's the idea of our hearts being hard and those need to be softened up. Then there's the idea of us not taking ourselves too seriously, so that we don't act too shallow in such a shallow way. And then the final two examples, just quickly, you've got this idea of a root that is withered, and then a seed that grows up amongst storms, and it grew up, then it got choked. You know, sometimes the things that hinder our spirituality and hinder our growth are external. They're not internal. It's the environment that you're in, right? If a plant is not growing properly, you don't look at the plant and say, yeah, you're just bad mind as a plant. You'll look at the plant and think, okay, does it have sufficient water? Does it have sufficient earth? And we have to ask ourselves, I suppose COVID has made us ask ourselves even more, are the spaces that we inhabit and the lives that we live, are they good for maximizing our spiritual potential and our mental well-being? And if they're not, then a lot of times we've been able to now during COVID say, all right, let me reassess and re-examine the environments that I'm in and whether or not they give life, whether or not whether or not they allow me to thrive, right? So this idea of like living amongst thorns is what is being expressed here. And then finally, and my point there is that if you are living among thorns, then you can do something about it, right? You can make the decision. Don't be just a victim and say, oh, this is the way that situations are. If you don't like the environment that you're in, then change it. You can change the story. You've got the power to do that. That's the blessing of being a human, the blessing of being able to see new realities, right? To plant new seeds. And then finally, once you've done all those things, I believe that you're going to be good soil. Once you've opened up your heart to new possibilities and not allowed yourself to become resentful and allowed yourself to hold grudges and hold yourself back, then you'll be able to open to new possibilities. And I also believe that once you Don't take yourself too seriously, and realize that this is a practice and this is a journey that you're going to be on for your whole lifetime. That you'll stop being shallow because you'll realize that it's not about how things look. It's about deeper things than that. It's about what God is doing on the inside. And then, again, if you're in an environment where you feel like you've got thorns around you, then do what you need to do to make sure you can breathe, and take your time to breathe, and allow God to breathe new life into whatever it is you're trying to do in the world, and whatever it is you're trying to be. And then finally, I believe that it will allow you to be good soil. Well, this has been the pilgrimage with Temple Way Church. I'm Bobby Bovell. Thank you for joining, and we will see you tomorrow. We'll explore another one of the parables. See you. Thanks. Bye-bye.